How are you spending your time? I have a daily practice, which is a fruit of learning, and it has become increasingly intense for me. I would like to share with you at the beginning of this program what my observation of time is. How am I spending my time? I believe, my friends, that we become happier, if we can say that. You know that I prefer the concept of fulfillment more than the concept of happiness. Sometimes the concept of happiness, when it occurs to us, comes across as very empty, right? And we end up limiting happiness to certain moments. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about feeling satisfied, even having problems and difficulties in life. Because sometimes the way people understand happiness excludes the difficulties of life. And that's not true. No one can live without life's difficulties. And yet that doesn't prevent us from being happy. When we talk about human fulfillment, it seems that we understand difficulties as indispensable parts of our lives. So I feel more fulfilled the more I have a good relationship with time. Hello, my brother. In today's video, Father Fabio brings us a reflection on the theme. How are you spending your time? You can observe that we are increasingly like this. If this was already a characteristic of other times, of other eras, we can say that we are practicing this inability to deal with the present moment a lot. It has been a constant in our lives. As I speak, think about what you experience, about your difficulties as well. You can observe. We are rarely fully present in what we are doing. We are rarely fully present in the place where we are. For example, I came from a lecture. I might be here talking to you, but my heart is already at home, which is where I would like to be now. And because I'm anxious to get home, I end up not doing well what I'm asked to do now. So I schedule my agenda in a way that I'm never where I am. I'm never where my body is. That's strange, isn't it? It seems that we don't put our totality into what we do. I'm not saying that this is happening to me right now. On the contrary, I'm very happy to be here, especially during this time that I'm traveling, and we don't regularly have the spiritual direction program. So I'm here in Sao Paulo with great satisfaction recording. I left my commitment. I could have gone straight home, but I wanted to stop by the Sao Paulo house, which always welcomes me. Every time I have a need or to make my life easier, I'm here. I feel happy to be here, to talk with you, to discuss the difficulties that are ours. Just recently, in the Diocese of Taubaté, at the meeting of priests, we had a reflection on spiritual direction. I had the honor of opening that morning, that day, at the request of Bishop Wilson, my bishop, to talk about spiritual direction in the lives of priests. Do we need to put our hearts into reflection? We need to reflect on the life we live. So I feel very satisfied to have this space for more than 10 years, almost 13 years now, that the spiritual direction program has been running. I feel extremely happy to be here. But I can't deny that in many moments of my life, I'm not where my body is. I'm not where I am physically, because my mind is somewhere else. And we know that we can't separate the body from the soul. Can't we? That's just a way of speaking. But when I say that I'm not here or when I'm there but not really there, it's because my thoughts are on another situation. This week I was talking about this. We're talking to someone, and they're looking at their cell phone. Sometimes we're talking about serious things, important things, and the other person, in turn, instead of being with us, listening, looking at us, because it's important to look at the other person while they're speaking. They're far away, talking to someone else, dealing with another situation that isn't the one right there in front of me. That's disrespectful, isn't it? And often in our family relationships, this habit becomes socialized. And if you complain, the person still says, "But I'm paying attention to what you're saying, aren't I?" They are giving me some attention, but not the kind of attention I would like to have to discuss that matter, especially if it's a trivial matter. But if it's a situation where I need the other person's attention, it's a lack of respect for the person speaking. But that's how we are. We are having difficulty being present with the people around us. And then, my friends, we start to create an inner unease that can even turn into an illness. As we discussed in that program with Isabella, the illnesses caused by work. These issues are closely linked to dissatisfaction. The person is dissatisfied. They go about fulfilling their time, but there's no satisfaction in doing what they do, in working at their job. And consequently, this generates emotional distress that sooner or later explodes in various ways. a psychiatric imbalance, or even physical problems because our emotional dissatisfactions have spilled over into the body? Is it in the body that all this is happening? So I have a bad situation occupy my mind. My mind, because it's under the power of a bad, oppressive thought, it ends up creating dysfunctions for the rest of the body because our entire organism, all our functioning, is intimately linked to the brain, right, which is where everything happens. It's where our emotions happen. I've said this here several times already. When we want to talk about affection, we use the metaphor of the heart. Oh, my heart is so hurt. My heart is wounded. In reality, this is just a symbol. We get wounded in the brain. It's a thought process. It's where everything is architected. It's where I know that I am me, that you are you. It's in our brain that we have effective information. And all of this sends messages to the rest of the body. So there are many emotional dissatisfactions, fruits of the strange way of living that reverberate in our bodies. And it's interesting because we've talked so much about this, haven't we? I believe that you yourself, in your conversations, often talk about this difficulty you're having with time. And why do we make favorable decisions, my friends? Why do we postpone so much if we already know that we are unwell because of our strange relationship with time, of never being where we are, sometimes of delaying decisions that would change our way of dealing with time? Yes, because why not? There's another way to deal with it. The best way to modify your relationship with time, unless it's by making decisions. I've given this testimony several times, but it's never too much to say. When I got sick, I needed to take medication. About 20 to 30 days later, I was already more balanced. The medication brought about an improvement. And who else has had it? Panic syndrome, now this burnout syndrome. Depression knows exactly how much we actually need medication. Medication is fundamental because sometimes what we're lacking is chemistry. The body, because of the stress we live with, doesn't have the hormonal production we should have. We don't. It's sometimes because of our irregular, careless diet. We don't have the necessary nutrients precisely because we don't have physical activity, because we don't produce the enzymes. It's the necessary hormones for well-being, because the whole body is driven by hormones. Hormones to wake up, hormones to be happier, hormones to sleep. We are a mechanism constantly regulated by hormonal production, which is the first to suffer when we experience stress. So me, I can get sick because of my lifestyle. My lifestyle is making me sick. If I eat poorly, if I don't sleep well, if I delay my rest, neglecting it and sacrificing my rest time by doing things that could wait, if I don't make an effort to schedule time for physical activity, for taking care of my body, it's very likely that sooner or later I'll pay the price. I'll get sick because chemically I become disorganized, and it's all in our chemistry. Our bodies are very intelligent, my friends. We produce chemicals for everything. But what if we neglect the care we give our bodies? Unfortunately, the body can't manage for a long time, right? To give us what we need to stay well, to keep us well. Then when I got sick and experienced the improvement that the medication brought me in the first decision, and I think that was the most sensible thing to do. So now that the medication has balanced me out, I would make the necessary decisions to address what was making me ill. And what was making me ill, which became as clear as day, was my relationship with time, the way I was dealing with time. Definitely, Meet, I wasn't born to live the hectic life I was living. It's not in my nature. Do you understand what I'm saying to people who can't live any other way? The hustle and bustle isn't a problem for them. They like it. Not me, folks. I like to stay put. I enjoy staying put. But suddenly, I had a life that didn't allow me to stay put. I was constantly going back and forth, and I lived like that for years. More than 10 years in that lifestyle. So, the moment I felt capable, the moment I felt more balanced, I could say, I made the decisions. Because if I didn't make the decisions, I wouldn't be being fair to myself, to my medication, to the doctor who is treating me, to the friends who are interested in my recovery, to my family who is worried. Care of my body. It's very likely that sooner or later I'll pay the price. I'll get sick because chemically I become disorganized, and it's all in our chemistry. Our bodies are very intelligent. My friends, We produce chemicals for everything. But what if we neglect the care we give our bodies? Unfortunately, the body can't manage for a long time, right? To give us what we need to stay well, to keep us well. Then when I got sick and experienced the improvement that the medication brought me in the first decision, and I think that was the most sensible thing to do. So now that the medication has balanced me out, I would make the necessary decisions to address what was making me ill. And what was making me ill, which became as clear as day, was my relationship with time, the way I was dealing with time. Definitely, Meet, I wasn't born to live the hectic life I was living. It's not in my nature. Do you understand what I'm saying to people who can't live any other way? The hustle and bustle isn't a problem for them. They like it. Not me, folks. I like to stay put. I enjoy staying put. But suddenly, I had a life that didn't allow me to stay put. I was constantly going back and forth, and I lived like that for years, more than 10 years in that lifestyle. So, the moment I felt capable, the moment I felt more balanced, I could say, I made the decisions. Because if I didn't make the decisions, I wouldn't be being fair to myself, to my medication, to the doctor who is treating me, to the friends who are interested in my recovery, to my family who is worried about me, and to those who are truly concerned about us. Because it's not just family that's worried about us. In fact, a good part of the people care my body. It's very likely that sooner or later I'll pay the price. I'll get sick because chemically I become disorganized, and it's all in our chemistry. Our bodies are very intelligent. My friends, we produce chemicals for everything. But what if we neglect the care we give our bodies? Unfortunately, the body can't manage for a long time, right? To give us what we need to stay well, to keep us well. Then when I got sick and experienced the improvement that the medication brought me in the first decision, and I think that was the most sensible thing to do. So now that the medication has balanced me out, I would make the necessary decisions to address what was making me ill. And what was making me ill, which became as clear as day, was my relationship with time, the way I was dealing with time. Definitely, Meet, I wasn't born to live the hectic life I was living. It's not in my nature. Do you understand what I'm saying to people who can't live any other way? The hustle and bustle isn't a problem for them. They like it. Not me, folks. I like to stay put. I enjoy staying put. But suddenly, I had a life that didn't allow me to stay put. I was constantly going back and forth, and I lived like that for years, more than 10 years in that lifestyle. So, the moment I felt capable, the moment I felt more balanced, I could say, I made the decisions. Because if I didn't make the decisions, I wouldn't be being fair to myself, to my medication, to the doctor who is treating me, to the friends who are interested in my recovery, to my family who is worried about me, and to those who are truly concerned about us. Because it's not just family that's worried about us. In fact, a good part of the people in our families sometimes treat us like ATMs. They only remember us when they need money. I'm talking about those people who are truly close to us, who are interested in our well-being. To be fair to all of that, I went to the chessboard of life and said, this needs to be changed here and there, because otherwise I'll fall asleep. Not even asleep, right? Because it's an inappropriate term. Depression where I'm sleeping all the time, right? Numb. I'm numb from the effect of the medication. I'm feeling good. And I'm going to continue living with the reasons that made me sick. It's not smart. It's not smart to continue living, provoking what made me sick. Because sooner or later, the medications lose the ability to do for me what my attitude should do. And of course, then the medication, aided by a life-changing attitude, works wonders on us. Because it's not working alone. And you're not judging that medication. The responsibility of curing you? Why am I saying all this, my people? Because we are all very sick physically, psychologically, and emotionally. Physically, physical illnesses, emotional illnesses, spiritual illnesses that are also linked to our relationship with time in these psychological aspects. Because of our relationship with time. Somewhere in there, are we neglecting something? Because we don't have time to take care of ourselves. Or because we are imposing on ourselves a job for which we were not made. A life for which we were not made. Because it's too important for us to know how to manage this. I need to update my identity. I need to look at myself, at my essence, to perceive everything that surrounds me, what my choices are, what I've been doing, and very honestly tell myself if everything I've been doing really has anything to do with me. I can't spend my days, my time, being in a place that has nothing to do with me. It's like Daniel who is here today, okay? Good evening, Daniel. Thank you for your presence. Daniel is a musician. If we put Daniel to do a job that has nothing to do with music, and sometimes he needs to, right, Daniel? To survive. But it's good, because all his aptitudes lead him to this place. That's why it's so sad for us to see our artists, real artists, you know? I'm not talking about those who just smear paint around. No, I'm talking about artists. Like our dear Elio Petrus there in Mariana. For me, one of the greatest living expressions of a true artist. And the man who takes a block of cedar and carves an image out of it, a perfection, a work that takes time. I'm not talking about what people sometimes call art today, which is much more linked to entertainment. People take something full of dirt and say it's art. The person didn't even take 15 minutes to do it. I'm talking about real art. An artist, for example, who can't survive from their work. Having to do something else is very sad. Or all of you here who are working on the technical team. If you don't like what you do, it's cruel, isn't it? Paolo, who accompanies me everywhere. Paolo likes to drive, doesn't he, Paolo? Paolo gets satisfaction from driving. Imagine if he didn't like it. I've never seen this boy in a bad mood. I've been with him for many years. I've seen him tired, but never in a bad mood. Dissatisfied, always willing, available. He helps me a lot. He goes far beyond the function of a driver, but he's happy. He earns his family's livelihood from his work, but he earns it with happiness, with joy. People, it's very sad to have to spend a whole life working in a situation or in a place, in a profession that has nothing to do with us. That's why you who have children, in the process of choosing what they will do with their lives, let your children express what they like. The time is gone when we forced our daughters to go to that university because that was their father's profession, that was their mother's profession, and you, this joy, this pride you have in your parents, but don't impose on your children. Don't make them live what you would have liked to have lived, because this is your struggle with time, and that time won't come back. The time you are unhappy in a certain place, in a relationship, in a situation, that time won't come back. That time won't come back. Make the decision that is favorable to you, and consequently, you will benefit the people around you, because happy people don't bother others. You can observe the most difficult people, those people who are always annoyed, always upset with their own lives. They have difficulty seeing the joy, the happiness of others. They are heavy, difficult people because they are not happy in their struggle with time. So, the struggle with time. Wisdom in dealing with time is fundamental for us to have satisfaction, for you to realize that you are in the right place, doing the right thing. Nothing can be superior to this joy, my friends, knowing that we are doing the right thing, because there you will face difficulties, but you face them with joy. If you chose a profession that you really like, it's not even about what will make you richer, because sometimes people want a profession that will yield more financial results. For that, they give up happiness. Although our children are much freer in this regard, I perceive these younger generations as much more interested in being fulfilled and happy than in accumulating money. They look at us, they look at their parents who worked their whole lives and didn't even have time to enjoy the results of their work, and they think, I don't want to live like that. How many parents today are having difficulty passing on their businesses to their children because they look at their parents? They observe how they lived during the time they had that company. They realize that they were not happy because they spent their time managing to have money for this and that. They look at it negatively. I don't want that for myself. No, the transition is very difficult. Sometimes our children are observing our way of life, aren't they? They are showing great wisdom, great sensitivity in realizing that we didn't know how to manage our time. And they don't want to make the same mistake. And they are right. Don't be ashamed if you suddenly realize that you need your child's advice. He is freer than you. He is in a better position to help you with advice than you are to him. Sometimes the roles are reversed. There's no problem with that. Sometimes your child is already enjoying a freedom, a courage to be who he is. It might even bother you. It bothers us because when we can't achieve the best of ourselves, we tend to want others not to achieve the best of themselves either. So, there are many young people who are managing to live responsibly. I'm not talking about debauchery. I'm talking about, in fact, taking human fulfillment seriously. I was born for this. I want to work with this. I don't care if I earn less. I know it goes against my Father's wishes, but I want to do what gives me pleasure, what gives me satisfaction. And you, rest assured, because where there is satisfaction, he will find the difficulties of life, which is sometimes the discourse we have, right? They want what's easiest, don't they? Even where we are happy, we have difficulties, but they are the right difficulties. One thing is to face the challenges of my profession, of my way of life, and be happy that way. Another thing is to live the challenges of a situation that is not mine, that is not for me, that has nothing to do with me. Then yes, it's double the suffering. Therefore, my friends, let's be attentive. God wakes us up to this all the time, so that we may be the right people in the right places. And it's worth reflecting on this every day before going to sleep. Today I was who I could have been. Today I did what I was truly meant to do. I was honest with myself. I sought the best part. I was honest in wanting and fighting, in working, in overcoming difficulties to be able to take my place in the world. This is an indication of networks, human action, when we realize that we are overcoming difficulties that make sense. These are sufferings that make sense, because they are contributing to our growth. Thank you very much for your company. May God pour out many blessings upon you if you are needing to experience a breakthrough, the end of emotional and affective dependence, if you need to make a decision in your work. May God's blessings strengthen you so that you can act favorably towards your overcoming your knowledge. He who is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. When darkness presses in and the soul feels alone, it seems like a world of despair and hope says goodbye. But there's a voice that echoes peace, that calms any torment. The heart is restored.